everyone very much for coming. Just going to double check this. Good. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. I noticed a change now. We've moved over to Friday nights. We used to be Thursday nights. But there used to be a dance group out there, and they are out there Mondays to Thursdays, and it wasn't very conducive for a lot of our attendees because of the noise.
Yeah, makes
and
sense.
so this is the only other night, so Friday's probably not very convenient for a lot of people, but it's better for this facility.
That makes sense.
Yes. So we'll get started here. We have a bit of housekeeping that we do at the very beginning.
Okay.
So this group, I'm the founder of Calgary Concussion Awareness and Support. My name is Deb Angus. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor, warrior. We don't like to call ourselves survivors because we talk about this in other sessions. Like a breast cancer person or any cancer person, once they beat cancer, they're considered a survivor. But with brain injury, mine's permanent now. I'm never going to outlive this. I'm not a survivor. How can you won't survive this? So you become a warrior. You've learned to manage it and work around it. So you'll find this a lot if you go on any of the Facebook groups, any of the support groups, even on the kidney one too. They're all calling themselves warriors. And I said, I was doing that like 16 years ago. But anyhow, because that's just how it works out for us, because we realize that 100% recovery for us, that when it's over that line, I'll show you the graphic later on. I'm mild traumatic brain injury, borderline moderate, and it's permanent. Whereas concussion is part of the traumatic brain injury continuum, but you can recover from that, especially if it's your first injury. And the problem you get into is this, you start having more concussions. And this was my fourth, and now it's permanent. So the other, and I wasn't aware of the first three. So the other person, she's my advisor, is Josie, and I met her about 3-4 years ago, and she's now 3 years post-injury and still not getting any better, and learning to live with that. And she advises me in the background as well to remind me what it's like in the early days, because I was fairly low functioning at first. After this, probably about 25% functioning. I wasn't able to speak without stuttering and stammering. A lot of vision issues, which I'm still dealing with, and noise and ringing in the ears, balance issues, left side weakness. So I've kind of come a long way with rehab and a lot of work in that. But when we have setbacks, we're right back down there again. We have to rebuild back. So it's always good to have Josie in my ear to remind me what it's like in the early days, because I worked so hard to get to this level of functioning. I kind of forget sometimes. So why are we here? To help raise awareness of the seriousness of concussions and traumatic brain injuries, to help you understand the symptoms of a concussion, how easily these injuries happen, and the healing process for concussions and brain injuries. To share coping strategies and to help you better understand this injury and to help you live well while recovering. And to help you recognize that multiple concussions can lead to serious consequences that can impact your career, your relationships, and your future health. And we have a disclaimer here as well. The ideas, suggestions, and general principles and conclusions presented are subject to your personal health and sound medical advice. Every possibility is not represented here, nor do we presume that all possibilities relate to your specific situation. This awareness group is not a substitute for recognized medical advice or treatment. Always consult your healthcare practitioner for medical advice. We also have group guidelines. Thoughts, feelings, experiences shared in this group will stay in this group. Respect others' right to keep their information private. Accept and respect what is unique to each attendee in the group. Be respectful of others' spirituality, religion, and belief systems. Allow others equal time for sharing. Feel free to ask questions at any time. And if you prefer to remain silent and pass on sharing at any time, please feel free to do so. And this is a reminder, if anyone has a cell phone with them, to please turn it off. If you do need to take a phone call, if you could leave the room so as not to disturb others. And we have a new meeting, well this is new after the first year. We had a feedback group and they suggested they want a 10-minute break. So we were fitting them in. So usually we do first a 20-minute presentation, and then we fit in a 10-minute break. If anybody needs one, I will be asking. If not, we just continue on. Sometimes we bring in guest speakers. If not, then I continue on with the rest of my presentation. And then we have a 30-minute sharing circle at the end. And if anybody needs a 10-minute break before that, we will allow that as well too. So our presentation tonight is about concussion and family dynamics. You didn't get hit that hard. Get up. Just brush yourself off. This is what a lot of us hear from family members, because awareness of concussions is so low. They don't understand that we're in a different world while we're recovering from this, and it's not just a hit on the head anymore. It is considered we'll get into that later here. So who are affected by concussions? Concussion affects not only the injured person, but everyone around them. Spouses, friends, co-workers, family members, neighbors, everybody that's around you. And especially if they thought they knew who you were and now you're operating and functioning differently, especially if they don't have awareness of concussions, they'll get insulted because they don't understand why you're functioning differently and not your normal jovial self. Family roles are changed, careers are altered or threatened. There are a lot of times financial difficulties, sometimes a downward spiral. Depression and suicide can follow if that happens. But it doesn't have to be that way. You and your family can expect a positive outcome as long as you can find an accurate diagnosis, which a lot of us are finding is actually pretty difficult to do. You need proper information and support, proper rehab, understanding, cooperation, patience, and best of all is communication. Here are some words from concussion sufferers that I've been dealing with and advocating for. This has completely ruined my life. The harder you try, the harder it snaps back in your face. I can't believe all of this is happening to me. In bed with the lights off, headache, and just crying my eyes out. Is this now my life? Especially for the people that don't understand concussions and they're living through this, and it's taking months sometimes for some people. They just don't understand. How have I become that dizzy guy? I feel I now have the IQ of a mouse. How can this be possible? I have a master's degree. And I remember when I went in for rehab and I said to them, I feel like I've lost half my IQ points. And she just laughed at me. She said, that's not possible. She said, it's just because how your brain is reorganized now, you have to learn differently. And it makes it very hard until you adjust. I was so exhausted that each breath I take makes me feel even more tired, if that's possible. No one told me this could happen so easily or last so long. This is because brain injury awareness is so low in the public. And I didn't know before all this happened. My son constantly makes fun of me and thinks I'm going crazy. I've heard that one a lot. My family totally doesn't get this, always tells me I'm stupid, and they laugh at me. So cruel. My husband tries to help and tries to understand, but the truth of the matter is he thinks I've gone off the deep end.
That's really sad.
Yeah. And that's only because people are not aware of what this injury can do to a person. And these are responses from concussion sufferers, family, friends, and co-workers, and I do apologize, some of these are quite harsh. But this is reality for a lot of us. Aren't you better yet? How long is this going to take? You're just being lazy. Why don't you try getting out more and doing something? So bad. A concussion is nothing, just a bump in the head, so suck it up, Buttercup, and stop being so stupid. You're just making it worse than what it really is. I'm tired of doing her job for her. She's always taking time off. Like, how bad can it be if she wasn't even hospitalized? This is just a clear indication that people are not aware of what concussions are. A diagnosis of concussion can be a scary and lonely experience, especially when family and friends do not understand what a concussion really is and how it affects a person. Why make a bad situation worse? So when a person is first dealing with a concussion, their world is turned upside down, and how they hear things and see things is different. They're almost feeling like they're having an outer-body experience, and they're not centered anymore. They're just really scattered. They're all over the place. So they're already under a lot of stress and a lot of they don't understand what's going on. And so when family members are yelling at them, say, well, why don't you do this the way you've always done it? And how come you're not doing this anymore? Well, just making the situation worse. It is more than a knock in the head. Brain injury is a chronic, ongoing disease process and not a one-time injury as traditionally thought. One of my favorite brain researchers, Dr. Mazel, Brent Mazel. And I have this mother's permission. She posted this up on one of the Facebook groups. This is her daughter, 9 months. Once a month, she took a picture of her through her progress. And it took her 9 months to start feeling better. So look at all the different looks on her face. And a lot of people say it's an unknown or unseen injury. And I'm saying, don't tell me that. Look at her face. You can tell something's wrong. The poor little devil, she was suffering. It looks like there in the middle that she's getting a little bit better, but you have setbacks. It's not a straight trajectory to get better. It's all over the place. So it took her 9 months for a young girl like that to get better. So we're not making light of this. This is a real injury.
Imagine someone my age.
Yeah. Medical assistance for concussion, they're now suggesting rest for 1 to 5 days. Previously it was like 2 months. Now they're changing. This is all an evolving field. Now they're changing and saying just a few days and try and do simple things around the house and see how you're handling that. Like, what's that word? Coordinating? I forget the word now. But just get up to make a cup of tea is a major process. You know, you got for somebody who's
Well, there's so many steps that you have to think
you got to
of,
get
right?
the teacup out, you got to
Yeah.
boil the water, you got to get the tea, you got to get the sugar, you got to get the spoon, and if you can't handle that,
And then
you
you
still
have to
need
try to
more
remember
rest.
to drink the tea.
Yeah, you still need more rest. That's a simple activity to try and start. Still, I think coordinating, but it's not coordinating. It'll come to me. So try and do modified activity with supervision or assistance so they can watch and see how difficult you're having doing simple things to help them to understand. And it is very difficult to predict the length of time to recuperate, and this is because a lot of people have had prior concussions and we're not aware of it. I wasn't. I had 3 major ones, knocked out cold at age 8, 17, and 22. Wasn't aware. This is in the 60s and 70s. Nobody talked about concussions back then. It wasn't until the 4th one came along and never been the same. And I had no issues back then. Just got up, brushed myself off, and got on with life. No symptoms. But the 4th one, game over. So after 2 to 3 months, you could be then diagnosed as post-concussion syndrome. And this is a graphic I came up to help people decipher all the different terminologies we're hearing out there. But my biggest contention is a lot of people and still a lot of organizations that are saying concussion, also known as mild traumatic brain injury, and that's not correct. No, because concussion is part of the traumatic brain injury continuum. And under concussion, and you can see this on our prior videos, you have post-concussion syndrome and persistent post-concussion syndrome. So that's if you have a typical concussion, and if it's your first injury, they determine it's your first, that didn't get better in a few weeks or a few months, and they'll start saying, oh, you have post-concussion syndrome, so it could take you up to a year to get better. And if you go past that, or if you discover your prior concussion history, and chances are then you need a neuropsych assessment, and you'll be over this red line where you don't want to be. I'm mild, borderline moderate traumatic brain injury. It'll never go away. You have to learn to compensate and live around it. A concussion affects who a person once was. It can also affect the primary caregivers of the family. Relationships, family roles, and responsibilities will experience change. Interpersonal communication can become a serious challenge to everyone connected with this scenario, especially those who may be dealing with their own feelings of shock, denial, anger, and depression that can accompany the losses from this injury. Then the behavioral aspects come into play here as well, and I find a lot of the general public aren't aware of this one. Depression and anxiety, mood changes, poor judgment, disinhibition. That means maybe you're out at a party or something rather, and they don't know. Socializing is really hard for somebody who's healing from a concussion. And I keep looking at Dean, and we're both in the traumatic brain injury realm, and he's been around at what, 7, 8 years now?
8 years.
Yeah, 8 years. I'm 17. Yeah. So we are well aware of all these ones, but it is also an aspect of concussion recovery as well too. But the poor judgment, disinhibition is really hard in social aspects because sometimes you think you're saying something funny or something and that the other people aren't getting it. Or you're interrupting somebody and you don't really realize that you're interrupting. So social skills are really hard. And of course sadness and anger. And we find, especially if there's temporal lobe damage, anger is a huge issue. And especially with men. They have a lot of anger issues because they're a lot of times the
strong,
yeah,
winning.
Exactly. Like you imagine these football players that are experiencing this as well too. It's really tough on them. So a lot of them start medicating with drugs and alcohol, and that just makes it all worse. And that's where you get the downward spiral. You're not getting the support and understanding. So how long do the symptoms last? I get this asked this a lot. Generally anywhere from a few days to possibly 2 to 3 weeks. But that depends on your age, the level of concussion, and if you've had any prior injuries. Anything longer than that, which is a typical concussion recovery, you could be dealing with post-concussion syndrome or possibly a more serious injury as a mild or moderate traumatic brain injury, which needs to be properly diagnosed via neuropsychological assessment, preferably at a hospital rehab. So now we get into the actual family dynamics here. So this is a typical family unit here in Canada, or in North America, I guess. Well, pretty well everywhere in the world, I would think, but it's changing now with a lot of dynamics changing in the world. So usually there's a mother and a father and children. So if the father is concussed and the main breadwinner of the family, how will the family manage financially without his income or with lowered income? Huge, huge impact right there. Does he have disability benefits through his workplace? And can his wife and children manage the household chores usually completed by the father? And if this is his first concussion and it's just 2 or 3 months that he has to recuperate, it should be an easy enough adjustment to do. But when you get into troubles, when you get into more of the permanent injuries and this is your new life, welcome. It's huge changes for the family. And so if the father's concussed, then a lot of the stuff moves over to the mother. And can she manage work, kids, and household on her own, plus be caregiver to the husband? Huge, huge responsibility on her shoulders all of a sudden. The mother may become resentful of the husband, especially if recovery time is extensive, and extra responsibility on her shoulders, plus the financial hardship. It's not a good scenario, but this is what a lot of people are dealing with. And the mother will definitely have less time for herself and her friends. Then the children, when father's concussed and staying home to recuperate, children may not understand why dad is not going to work, why he's in bed all the time, and why he can't play with them. Children don't understand these changes all of a sudden to their world. Children can become angry because dad is not able to do normal activities with them. Funds may also be limited and changes will be inevitable for a while. Depending on the ages of the children, they may have to help pick up the slack in household chores, cooking and cleaning. Older children may also need to find ways to contribute to the household income. So just with one member concussed, how it affects the whole family. So then we go over to when the mother is concussed, who will be taking care of the family and the household chores? Does mother have disability coverage through work to help with finances while she's off work indefinitely? Will her job be secure until she can return? And what if she can never return to work? And for the husband at that time, if the wife is concussed and cannot work, can family manage on one income? Can father also handle majority of household and other chores while wife is recuperating? And here again, if you get into that situation where there's no awareness of concussion, you can see how the husband will say, well, like, how long is this going to take? You know, we need you back here in the game.
Come on, lady.
Are there other family members who could be helping out? For the children, when mother is concussed, the children have little understanding why mom isn't able to do things for them, drive them to places, or play with them like she used to. Depending on their ages, children may have to help out more around the house with cooking and cleaning. And if resources are redirected to therapies to help mother recover, there may not be extra funds for usual activities like sports clubs, parties, clothes, vacations, etc. Very difficult for children to understand that. And if children are old enough, could they possibly bring in extra income to help the family? So just right there, either one of the parents are affected. You know, there's huge implications there. So now we go down to when there is a child that is concussed. It affects the time and attention spent with the other children in the family. This child may not be able to go to school for a period of time, nor may they be able to play sports. And their friends may not understand why they are different now. And this is really devastating for younger people, that they can't understand that all their friends have shunned them or gone away from them. People don't know how to react to somebody who's got a neurological issue. They just kind of like, oh, okay, well, see ya. Okay, bye. They just don't know how to handle it.
Especially kids.
Yeah, so this is why it's so important to raise awareness for the whole family, for all society in general, really, as far as I'm concerned. And the other children, again, may become resentful and misbehave because of time and resources spent on the concussed sibling, and possibly may have less supervision as well. The mother, did I do that one? Yeah. The mother is usually the caregiver, plus also working outside of the home. She may have to stop work to be full-time caregiver. And how will the family manage finances while mother is not working? And that's just with one child is concussed. So you can see how there could be a lot of anger and resentments building up in a family, especially if there's no understanding of the recuperation, the recovery period for a concussion. It's just like, that's why we're hearing those bad comments that the family say to the concussed person, because they don't understand what a concussion is. It's very sad. So not only family dynamics, but if there's couples, just a couple, and there's no children involved. What happens if one is concussed and the other person doesn't understand? And all of a sudden you can see the anger going to be building up and going back and forth. And this is what we're finding happens to a lot of people. If one of them is not able to keep their job, and if they don't have two incomes to maintain their household, they're going to lose their house. And if the other partner becomes pissed off about all that, they're going to take off. All of a sudden, here's a concussed person trying to recover, and they're on their own and no place to live. This is why there's such a strong connection between brain injuries and homelessness. And not only that, you have to take in consideration all the friends, the co-workers, neighbors, extended family members, long-distance relatives, and casual acquaintances. They just don't understand all of a sudden why so-and-so isn't at the door all the time to greet them, or why they don't come to parties anymore, or, you know, why don't they do this anymore, and they don't understand. Well, they're recovering. Well, you know, how long is this going to take? Oh, as long as it's going to take.
As long as it takes.
But people just don't understand. So we like to go over the symptoms of a concussion. Now, there is a handout back there to take if you want later. Physical symptoms alone, excuse me. All that running around I did earlier. Physical symptoms are dizziness, problems with balance, nausea and or vomiting, balance issues, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to light, blurred vision, headache, low energy, unequal pupils, seeing flashing lights. And then the mental symptoms of a concussion: difficulty remembering, confusion, inability to concentrate, inability to think clearly, mental fogginess, inability to remember new information, trouble paying attention, and loss of focus. And there's also sleep issues. Either you're sleeping more than usual, unable to fall asleep, or sleeping less than usual, which affects your overall health and your overall ability to handle everything during the day. And then the emotional aspects: easily angered or upset, feeling nervous or anxious, feelings of sadness, crying more than usual, a lack of interest in usual activities, and depression. Now, a big thing people should realize is a lot of family doctors, this is not even on their radar of concussions. I know I went to a teaching center in 2006, and after about a year or two, he said, you know, before you came to us, he said, this wasn't even on my radar. So we're finding a lot of people coming here and they're so upset with their family doctors and saying, well, why aren't they helping us more? They're not getting trained in this. Brent Mazel, the brain researcher I mentioned earlier, he has 2 sons that are physicians. He said they received no training at all on concussions. So we do have resources coming up later that your family doctor can help you get into a program, but we'll discuss that as we come along. But a lot of times the doctors will diagnose you with anxiety or depression and want to give you meds for that. Well, you have anxiety and depression because you have a brain injury.
Yes. Yeah.
So So you can see the vicious circle and why it's so important for us to be aware of that when we go to a doctor and say, no, I don't have depression and anxiety. I'm dealing with those as part of this.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really, you have to stand up for yourself. Concussion awareness is so important. I cannot express that any more than I can. That's why I started up this group in 2016. Undiagnosed concussions, I just posted an article on our Facebook page a little while ago, and it has huge implications for families and for society in general. An incredible 80% of these injuries remain undiagnosed simply because hospitalization did not occur. And the researchers get a lot of their stats and their information from hospitals. Well, a lot of us don't make it to the hospital, you know? You had a rear ending. That's what happened to me. We were rear-ended at a red light by a distracted driver. And I was on holidays. I was off work that week. And I just rested as much as I could, but still something was wrong, and I went back to work and kept working, but something was not right. So this is why a lot of us fall between the cracks, because we don't understand enough about what this is and how we can get the help that we need. And the thing you need most to figure this out is not working properly at the moment. So this leaves many people living with pain, uncertainty, and no support or understanding from those around them. So undiagnosed concussions is really bad. So to learn more about concussions, I do have our previous videos posted up on our Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. So just go on either one of those and just search for Calgary Concussion Awareness and Support, and you'll find our videos there. Support for concussed individuals and their family. Here in Calgary, they have the Community Accessible Rehab Program, CAR, and you can get a referral from your family doctor after 3 months injury, after 3 months post-injury. Because that way of thinking is that if your symptoms haven't cleared up by then, you need help, and most of them do clear up by that 3-month part, so then you don't need any help anymore. Accurate information about concussions and the uncertainty of healing process. So families need to understand that, and you will learn that through the CAR program. And any other possible assistance that we can dig up for you, like financial assistance, and possibly family members may have to kick in and help out financially as well. I've heard a lot of people down in the States, one gal lost her job because she wasn't well after a year, and they just fired her, said she couldn't keep up with what she had to do anymore. She had to sell her condo. They were living in somebody's trailer mobile home for a few months, and then winter came along. She lives in Chicago, and that wasn't working out anymore. She heard about a brain researcher down in Arizona, and then she found out her medical plan, whatever, they have different levels down in the U.S., it didn't cover this specialty. And so I don't know what's going on, but like, look at what happens, you know, just something that simple. So, and then you got to find a lot of support groups and caregiver groups. There's 3 local ones here in Calgary. This is one of them. There's 2 other ones that'll come up on a slide later on. And caregiver groups, a lot of those are, the support groups as well are on Facebook. You'll find a lot of those as well too. And you also need access to mental health support for anger management, stress management, self-esteem, depression, and anxiety, healthy nutrition, and setting goals. And why are brain injuries so misunderstood? This was an article I posted on our page June 25th, and this is it must have hit a nerve with a lot of people because it reached over 10,000 people. I've never had a posting go that wild before. And it's basically because a lot of people don't understand our intelligence is not affected by brain injury. So here it explains here, the other parts of the brain that guide our brain power can be messed up. Decision-making and complex social interactions can cause major problems in one's life and career. The individual with high intelligence may still have cognitive problems such as head pain, difficulty thinking, memory problems, attention and concentration deficits, mood swings, and frustration, as well as physical symptoms such as neuropathy, nerve pain, numbness, balance issues, sensitivity to light and noise, changes in sense of smell, fatigue, visual issues such as double vision, depth of field problems. I forgot, I should also have tinnitus, and they're ringing in the ears. A lot of people, I still have that after 17 years. These effects of brain injury are commonly overlooked and greatly impact our daily functioning. So it's not that we've lost half our IQ points, it's just that we got so much going on, the brain resources are trying to manage everything else that's going on to help us speak properly, help us stand up without falling over, leaning over, that type of thing. So we don't have the brain resources to speak properly and have the energy anymore. So these effects are commonly overlooked. Our slower processing speeds may appear as average, where prior to injury we would have tested above average. So just something that simple, just people need to understand that. It's not like we've gone Fruit Loops or anything like that. It's just our brain is overworked trying to deal with all this other physical and cognitive stuff that's going on. So, do anybody need a break? You want to continue on? We're good? Okay. So this is the other part of the graphic that I was talking about. So we talked about concussion here, and that was the recovery process and the awareness that we need for concussion. Now we're going to go over this red line is what I talk about, into the more the traumatic brain injuries, mild, moderate, and severe. Did you ever have a diagnosis, Dean, to say?
Yeah, I had a cognitive psych, and they diagnosed it after, it was 3 years after,
Yeah.
as mild TBI.
Oh.
Probably mild to moderate.
I would say you're more moderate, but yeah. So like I said, I was diagnosed as mild, borderline moderate, and Dean was diagnosed as mild. And this is where I say I get into a huge upset, because in the industry a lot of people say, or in the media are the worst, they say concussion, also known as mild traumatic brain injury, and it's not the same. It's not the same. And as I explained it here, that you should get better in 2 to 3 months, or maybe a year with the post-concussion syndrome. It depends if you had prior concussions. This was my 4th. I don't know about you, Dean, but it was a serious accident. It was a life-threatening accident. So you don't have to have multiple concussions to get diagnosed as mild or moderate. If you've had a severe enough accident,
Right.
you're into that category. And I've actually met a couple women who were severe traumatic brain injury survivors, and talking to them, you would not know it. But again, I consider ourselves the lucky ones, because we can pull it off for a couple of hours of being high energy and being okay. But that what you don't see is when we go home, we're out for a few hours. That's why I say to a lot of my friends, well, yeah, if somebody said to me, well, you don't look like you have a brain injury, and I said, yeah, but what you don't know is I'm going to go home and have a nap after we're done here.
So true.
I said, we're the lucky ones. We get to disguise ourselves as being uninjured, but we're still dealing with a lot of crap in the background. So how many is too many? This is another brain researcher I love, Dr. Michael McRae. How many is too many? Well, there is no definite answer. It appears that individuals with a history of 3 or more concussions may be at a potentially increased risk for recurrent concussion, lengthier recovery time, and potentially even long-term risk later in life. And again, we talked about that with the, there was a video, Consequences of Multiple Concussions, and that's up on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, so you can review those if you haven't seen those yet. Another brain researcher, a lot of people hear this guy, he's the expert down in the US that does SPECT scans, S-P-E-C-T. And researchers have found that undiagnosed brain injuries are a major cause of homelessness, drug and alcohol abuse, depression, panic attacks, ADHD, and suicide.
Holy smokes.
That's because if you don't know what it is, your family doesn't understand what it is, you're self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, the downward spiral. This is why raising awareness of concussions is so important. Then you can go to the doctors and talk intelligently about what you're dealing with, and hopefully get pointed in the right direction. Medical assistance for TBI, traumatic brain injury, and this is more, we're now in the permanent realm there. You need a neuropsychological assessment. When you get into the CAR program, and through your family doctor, they should be asking you, and I've had a few people have gone through that, and I haven't had time to talk to them about it, but they should go through your concussion history. And if they know, or if you know you've had 3 or 4, they should be considering giving you a neuropsych assessment to find out what you're dealing with. And then you need rehabilitation and counseling based on the results of that testing. And down in the States, a lot of them have to pay out of pocket $2,000 to get their neuropsych assessment, but then there's no rehab program following that, which is, to me, is totally ludicrous. Here are the results, here are the problems I'm having with. I need rehab to help me deal with those deficits. Like, duh. And you have to learn compensatory strategies. So there's things that your brain can't do anymore. I had trouble with attention and concentration. I couldn't get information in. They found or discovered repetition worked good for me. So somebody would say something to me and I go, yeah, okay, I got it. And I get to my desk, oh, it's gone. So I would have to do repeating. Somebody say something to me, I say it back to them, I write it down, I type it into my task list, repeat, 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 repeat. And then once it was in there, oh, okay, I'm okay. So that was what it was for me, was attention and concentration. I didn't recognize that at all. I was dealing with the double vision, sensitivity, light ringing, and ear balance issues, speaking issues, left side weakness. So I had no idea about the cognitive stuff going on. And you can be dealing with deficits for several years or possibly lifelong, and expected recovery is never 100%. Like I mentioned earlier, initially I was probably functioning at 25% level, and now after many years and trial and error over the years, I probably got 80 to 90% on a good day. But if I don't get enough sleep or if I've been subjected to any of my stressors, I quickly go down. And like if I go through a stressful period, and if I have a relapse, my whole left side shuts down. It takes me a couple of weeks to a couple of months to recuperate from that. Strobe lights from fire alarms are a major stressor for me. And I had a really bad one in 2014, I think it was, over at the Health Science Center. And it took me a year to recuperate from that one. That's why recovery is never 100%, because you're dealing with still a lot of stuff. So who are affected by traumatic brain injuries? They do not happen to one person, it happens to families. A person living with a brain injury is a different person than previously, often loses their sense of identity until they have adjusted to their new self. And I was talking to Dean about that, and the session in November, I think I'm going to talk about discovering, or I forget the title now, getting used to your new self. So it's a process we have to go through. It's like grieving. You have your old self. Now that person that you worked so hard to be, and you love that person, and they had special skills, and I say sparkle. Yeah. And then I lost my sparkle, and I had to adjust to this new person. And I wrote about that in my book, and I hated her for so many years. I wanted her to go away. She pissed me off. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do anymore. And I had to learn to adjust that. There was still something there.
You're sparkling in different areas now?
Yeah.
Sparkles
definitely. Well, it's not the same, but yeah, I've accepted what I do have.
Yeah.
And it is a big process for people to accept, and their partners and their family members to accept that well too. Here it takes time before they begin to feel comfortable with who they are now, to accept their new self. The person with brain injury needs time to grieve their loss of self. It took me 4 years even to accept that that had happened when they told me about it, and I said, I'm going to prove them wrong. They were right.
Gee.
Family members and friends grieve the loss of the person they knew and loved previous to the brain injury. Each person grieves in their own way, in their own time frame. A brain injured person is in a state of crisis and can become self-centered and focus mainly on their personal loss and how it affects their life. Because their loss is so great, they fail to recognize that family and friends have also suffered a loss. Family members and friends may feel guilty whenever they focus on their loss, because the loss of the brain injured person is so much greater. So you can see all these emotions bouncing back and forth, and if you don't have understanding about what a concussion or brain injury is, and then the anger comes up, and that's for a brain injured person, it's just like they just explode on a dime for no reason. So it's just like you have to understand what they're dealing with. And it's harder for us to understand what the family members are dealing with, because we're working so hard just to retain or regain what we thought we had as a sense of self. So that's why communication and awareness is so important. Often self-esteem and self-worth are based on our abilities and our accomplishments. When we lose our abilities to do, or when we mess up, we feel like failures. And again, that affects our self-esteem, depression, anxiety, just a whole circus goes on. We begin to think our loved ones would be better off without us. We don't want to become a burden or an embarrassment to our family and friends. This is our perception, not theirs. When we learn to separate who we are from what we do, we can actually become more comfortable in our changes and abilities. And we must always, always remember we are not less now because of brain injury, we are different. we have a different motherboard installed. We just have to rework the circuitry till we figure it out. Yeah. And there is support for concussed and TBI individuals and their family. And with proper family support and understanding, it can make all the difference between a positive outcome or a downward spiral. Imperative that family members are aware and understand how TBI affects a person and what the recovery process can be like, whether it's a concussion or a permanent brain injury. Ask for help from your family doctor, local TBI association and groups. Read TBI survivor books. Oh, that was the best resource for me, to read what other people were going through, and they were way worse than what I was going through. And I'm going, oh, okay, suck it up, I gotta work harder. Yeah. And watching informational videos, tons of stuff on YouTube and on Facebook. Just amazing to hear and see other people. There was one gal that I was communicating with a lot through email. It wasn't until I met her in person, and I go, oh, I didn't realize that she was that low functioning, that she was having difficulty speaking, because she was in a busy environment with the bright lights and all that kind of stuff, and it's hard, and they're trying to hide that because it's difficult being that person that you're not used to being. Attending local awareness and support groups, and checking out online support groups. Facebook is the best resource for that. Just go online and start searching for concussion awareness or concussion support, or traumatic brain injury as well too. Following testing and rehab, still continue with your brain training. Follow your compensatory strategies that they teach you. When they taught me that stuff over there, and they're doing things like keep lists, write things down, and I'm going, I don't do lists. But I started with the diarizing and stuff like that, and it took me about a year to really understood what it was they were teaching me. A year. And I go, oh, now it's starting to make sense. So I've seen a lot of people coming through here. Oh, I went to that program, it was no help at all. Well, what do you expect out of it? Did you really go in depth, do all the stuff that they say to do? And have you given it time? It takes a year or two before it starts making sense. Follow your compensatory strategies and stress management techniques. Huge right there as well. We talked about that too in the coping strategies series. We did 3 videos last year. They're posted up on our pages too. You'll need continuing support with any possible plan for return to work or school, and not only from your family but also from your employer. And find things you enjoyed from your childhood, favorite games, pastimes, and books, and be willing to try new hobbies and new interests. Be willing to explore all healing modalities. For stress management, there's stuff like relaxation response technique, deep breathing, positive affirmations, aromatherapy, sound healing, 432 hertz music, Tibetan singing bowls, tuning forks, meditative or nature music, ancient chanting and healing mantras, body work such as therapeutic massage, acupuncture, yoga, tai chi, qigong, Reiki, and craniosacral therapy. Walking in nature, sources of beauty and inspiration. Learning to slow down and just say, okay, this is it. A lot of people get stuck in the, well, why did this happen to me? A better way to look at it is, okay, now that this has happened, what do I need to do? Otherwise, you're adding more stress to an already overstressed body. So for more information on all those, view our coping strategies videos, part 1 and 2 on Facebook or YouTube. You may need continued help with self-esteem, believing in self, and finding strengths. A lot of times there are new strengths that you never had before. There's some brain injured people all of a sudden become brain genius or math geniuses. And a lot of people pick up.
I didn't get that. I can't
We
speak
didn't
any
get that on
other
our list
languages
to
either.
choose from. A lot of people take up painting and all of a sudden find that they have creative abilities that they had no idea.
I didn't get that either.
Yeah. So that's why you have to get out and try a lot of
You have to
different
try
things,
things,
and sign up for classes or go out to social groups and meet other people, whatever you can handle with your level of noise and lights and whatever, and you'll be amazed at what you will find. And you'll get, oh, I didn't know I was good at this. Keeping a positive frame of mind and finding humor in everyday life. I used to go read greeting cards. I'd be in the aisle at the grocery store. Because my life sucked at the moment, I needed something. And I watched nothing but comedy, still to this day. Planning, time management, and setting goals are things we need help with. Knowing our limits, not pushing and failing, or worse, re-injuring ourselves. Learning anger management skills, grieving and accepting the new you. Living well with concussion and TB is possible to lead a fulfilling and productive life in spite of TBI. It takes courage, patience, and persistence. A lot of support and understanding from family and friends. I should add patience, a lot of patience. And now we're going to cover some community resources here. We're doing quite well on time. So this is the CAR program I had mentioned earlier. These are all in the handouts out there, so you don't have to write all this down. And you need a referral from your family doctor for this, and it has to be after 3 months of injury. And they have different service providers that you'll have access there to. And I also like that they have pre-driving assessments for clients who have physical, cognitive, or perceptual disability as a result of a neurological injury. I didn't drive for 7 years. I self-monitored myself. Luckily, my husband did all the driving then. And slowly I just started doing little trips and stuff like that until I got more confident. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, I'm surprised nobody's ever said I shouldn't be driving. So this is a legislation thing I would like to see changed, actually. Anybody who's been diagnosed should have cognitive testing done for driving. CBI Health Group is another one I hear a lot that a lot of people are going to, but this is a paid service. It's not covered through Alberta Health. And they have various locations in Calgary. The two I know about are at Northsdale Mall and down by Chinook Mall. And you have access to different testings and rehab and all that kind of stuff they can do there, but you do have to pay for that from my understanding. Functional neurology, Dr. James Haxton, he came here and talked to us. I think it was in 2016. And he's a Carrick trained practitioner. If you haven't heard of Dr. Carrick, he's a Canadian chiropractor, but he works down in Georgia now. And he designed a system to help people that were dealing with concussion symptoms, and he's the doctor that was responsible for getting Sidney Crosby back on the ice.
Aha.
Yeah. So there are just only 27 chiropractors right now with that designation, and this guy contacted me. He must have heard from one of the board members here, because I've been looking for a Carrick trained practitioner anywhere in Canada, and there's one right here in Calgary.
Oh.
So a few of our group here have gone there, and they've been very happy with that. And same as Dr. Penny, she's been here too. She's a vision therapist. She's an optometrist at her own clinic there now. She's her own practice, Mayfair Eye Care, and she has a vision therapy division down there. And that's really it's hard work. I have one eye, this one's going this way, and this one's going up and over here. So I got prism lenses to help bring the eyes together, but then there's vision therapy exercises that they'll put you through different things to focus your eyes on different things and that. And I did do it for about a year, and then strobe lights hit me, and I regressed right back to start. So she said, this isn't going to work for you. So I still do some of the exercises they've given me just to keep, but when I get tired, I can't read anything. I see like four of everything. So that's why it's important to me to keep my sleep regulated and not get stressed out. That can help with all that. These other two businesses here, I have no experience with them. I've been looking at myosymmetries for neurofeedback to help to see if there's anything that can help with my eyes, because there's nothing physically wrong with the eyes. It's the optic nerve. It's the signal that goes to the brain. Yeah. So I have been getting some work done on the atlas adjustments and that, and it does seem to help, but again, when I get stressed or overloaded, and it's just, yeah. It's nothing permanent. These are more for children, so it's good to have there as well too, over at the Alberta Children's Hospital. And this is for, the other one is over at the UC, and it's for ages 13 to 60, but if you've had to have an injury within the last 4 weeks. And these, I guess, I don't know about the Alberta Hospital, that might be paid under Alberta Health, I would imagine. But the acute clinic, I'm not sure over at the UC. If you have extended health care program, it probably, you can claim it under there. If not, it's out of pocket. These are out of pocket as well too. Complete Concussion Management is a conglomerate in Oakville, Ontario, and they have 3 outlets here in Calgary that work under this special program that they have. I have no experience with them, but I have heard about them. And as well, the support groups are on Facebook. Just search for them, and these are the 3 local ones here in Calgary. They're not on the handouts out there. Concussion Life, It's meets the first Monday each month in Kensington, and she has a website. And the other one is a meetup group, and they meet downtown at the Co-op Market twice monthly. And then there's us at the bottom there, Calgary Concussion Awareness and Support. And Facebook groups. So basically I just say go on Facebook and start searching for TBI help. And the one in orange there, Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Awareness, is the page I started up because I got so pissed off about people calling concussions MTBI. And I said, here's the difference. There's also a lot of books out there on concussion. The Ghost in My Brain is a really good one. He was a professor and kept working all throughout his injury like what I did. So it was kind of interesting to read what he was going through. And Head Games is a good one. Chris Nowinski, he's very active down in the US. I think he used to be a former football player. And now he's a huge advocate about raising awareness about concussions and brain injuries. And books on TBI, there's several of them out there. Coping with Concussion and Mild Traumatic Brain Injury. That's an updated title. Her original book was Coping with Mild Traumatic Brain Injury. So she was the first one I read, and that's when I understood this is what I was dealing with, and then I knew and had enough information to fight for the testing that I needed. Brain Lash, I love that book. Gail Denton, she's down in Colorado. She actually wrote the foreword for my book. Understanding Mild Traumatic Brain Injury. Head Cases, Michael Mason, he's a caseworker for a lot of people that are dealing with brain injuries, but a lot of them were severe brain injuries. But still, it's very interesting to see how this is affecting people and their families. And the one at the bottom, Regaining Consciousness, is my book right here, and it is available at the Calgary Public Library. And I do have some for sale here as well too. Yeah. And I always like to finish off with a little thing at the end. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And this is a huge lesson for a lot of us to learn, especially if we have symptoms that are ongoing for a long time, is that we fight so hard to get back to who we were before, and it's not worth it because it's never going to happen. We have to learn this new person. So we do meet on the last Friday of each month from September to May, but not December. So our next meeting is October 26th, and we'll be talking about caring for the caregiver, and then in November, grieving and accepting the new you. And I am going to work on trying to get some future speakers in. And there's a flyer at the back there. Help yourself and take some of those back with you if you like. And if you prefer to receive the flyer electronically, we do have an email list there you can sign up for. And you can also visit our Facebook page so you can keep up to date on meetings and articles and general information. And that's it for our presentation. Nobody needs a break, and we're going to go for open discussion and sharing. I'll shut the camera off now.